What is happening, everyone? So I just saw the trailer for Monster Hunter Wild. That was our second trailer. Looked really good, and I actually stumbled upon this video, and I wanted to check it out. It's Monster Hunter Rise versus Monster Hunter World. Now, I myself just beat Sunbreak, which was a DLC for Monster Hunter Rise. I still kind of prefer Monster Hunter World over, but I wanted to check this video out and see what everybody thinks, if we agree with this or we don't agree with this. And I actually wanted to see if there was a divide between people. I actually enjoy both. I prefer World over it and Iceborne than Sunbreak, but let's see.
In every community that I've participated in, there's always a sizable division between the fans. These divisions are caused, usually,
I actually didn't even know there was a division.
They will release a game in a series that is significantly different than the ones that came before. Some fans will like the change, some fans will not like the change, and some will have mixed feelings. These fans will then congregate into different groups that champion different opinions of what the future of the series should look like. Now, in the Monster Hunter community, it is often the case that Monster Hunter fans don't agree with each other on what the next title should look like. In fact, I think that the Monster Hunter community has many more divisions than is typical. There's the realism and speculative evolution people, the veteran pre-Monster Hunter World fans versus the people that started in World or Rise. And surprisingly, the biggest and probably most antagonistic groups are the Monster Hunter World fans versus the Monster Hunter Rise fans, despite the fact that they both come from the same generation. Although the gameplay loop remains mostly the same for all Monster Hunter titles, the experimentation between titles created specific gimmicks and aesthetic differences that spawned different interpretations on what the game's direction should be. And that's what we're going to talk about in this video. We're going to talk about what the different groups are, what they want out of Monster Hunter, and what caused these divisions in the first place. To fully understand the different groups
Guys, let me know which one you started with. Me, myself, was World, and I actually went backwards. I went to Monster Hunter Generation, Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate, and then I went to Rise. I did explore some of the older games too. They were a little different. I guess going back, I wasn't too big of a fan of the older ones. Not saying they're bad or anything, but that was just my opinion.
In the community, and why there is such a range of expectations from the fans on what the next title should look like. We first have to look at Monster Hunter's design philosophy, and how the team at Capcom develops their games. Early in the development of the original Monster Hunter, Capcom shifted from a typical fantasy setting into a more grounded setting, a setting that had fantastical elements, but that also had ecologically conscious explanations for those elements. In Monster Hunter Illustrations 1, there are interviews with the development team that discuss this shift in development.
Guys, I want to skip a little bit
And talk about
Let's
the
jump
Monster
to this,
Hunter World
guys.
versus the Monster Hunter Rise fans. And to do that, we need to talk about the differences between mainline and portable Monster Hunter games. Luckily, what we've already discussed with the speculative evolution fans will be useful because these groups tend to overlap in some places. In broad strokes, a mainline title is a numbered entry: Monster Hunter 1, 2, 3, 4, and Monster Hunter World.
Which is 5,
Monster Hunter
actually.
World is Monster Hunter 5 because it was confirmed by Ryozo Tsujimoto. And he also explains that they changed the naming convention because they didn't want people to see Monster Hunter 5 and think,
Monster Hunter Wild right
well,
now.
I have to play the other 4, what if I'm lost? It was to prevent new players from being discouraged. But though they've dropped the numbering, the system hasn't gone away. They still release a mainline game and a portable game, and you can determine which is a mainline title by counting the number of dragon heads in the logo. Because Monster Hunter Wilds has 6...
Guys, I never played a portable. Let me know if you think it's worth playing. I definitely could check that out and maybe emulate it or something like that. But I never played portable. It was always mainline games.
serpent heads in the logo. It is Monster Hunter 6. And as further evidence, a while ago there was a leak in Capcom. That leak revealed that internally they're still using the numbered naming conventions for Monster Hunter 6.
Okay.
Now I mention this because the mainline and portable games have distinct qualities. Typically, mainline titles put more focus on narrative storytelling, and by extension the developers also focus more on world building and thus fantasy ecology. Portable titles are less concerned with that. They put more focus on the gameplay loop, experimenting with player actions and their dynamics with the monsters. They tend to be more experimental and disregard previously established norms. Mainline titles tend to have a more nuanced narrative, focused on character dynamics and uncovering the mysteries of the ecological world. As for gameplay, the mainline titles tend to have slower, heavier, more methodical, more grounded combat. Portable titles tend to be flashier, faster, more experimental. Maybe most critically, mainline titles try to keep the ecological aspects in the forefront. It's incorporated into the overall art direction, and as a result, the art direction will appear more down to earth, more mundane, grittier. The portable titles are less interested in that. Both the characters and the locations will be louder and more expressive, and their monster designs are often less interested in adhering to the realism that Monster Hunter is known for.
Okay.
Now, these tendencies I'm describing are not absolute. The design direction of both the mainline and portable games will bleed into each other sometimes, and there are clear exceptions to all the things that I've said. But generally, it is the case that the games differ in the ways I've described. With all of this context, it should be easy to see why there's so much online contention between fans on which direction the series should go. Radically different art direction and gameplay changes between releases will generate wildly different interpretations of what Monster Hunter is and what it should be. When Monster Hunter World released, it was and continues to be its best-selling game of all time. It jettisoned the series into the mainstream. It's no exaggeration to say that most players were new players that had never touched the series.
Yeah, that was me. I started
People
on
that
this
had been
actually
with the
too.
series for a long time and understood this difference between mainline and portable game were the minority. And so when Monster Hunter Rise was released, it appeared as a departure from everything World had set out to do. Even now, there are a huge number of Monster Hunter World fans that actively dislike Monster Hunter Rise. And even if they didn't outright dislike Rise, they certainly didn't want it going further into the Rise direction.
Me, I love the Rise actually, not as much as World, but maybe it was missing a certain amount of things. But Rise is a lot of fun. I don't know about you guys. Let me know.
The next Monster Hunter game after Rise to be more like Monster Hunter World. The real source of this conflict, I think, is that it wasn't clear that Capcom and Monster Hunter would continue in this mainline portable direction. The release of World began the 5th generation of Monster Hunter, and it changed so much so drastically that it made the future uncertain. There was a fear that Rise represented the permanent future of Monster Hunter as a whole, that the games would become much faster, less realistic, less interested in the monster ecology, more interested in rushing you from one fight to the next,
I can see that a
and
little
less
bit.
interested in the preparation and hunting simulation aspect. Now that the trailer for Monster Hunter Wilds confirms that it is in fact Monster Hunter 6, and that they are going to keep the mainline portable distinction, I suspect that the World and Rise fans will have less to be antagonistic over. Alright, finally, the last group is the old Monster Hunter fans, the veteran fans, versus the new fans, which they consider to be people that started in Monster Hunter World and Monster Hunter Rise. Monster Hunter has been around for 20 years, and there's a vocal minority of veterans that are upset by the overall changes in the game's development since the earlier entries. Older fans have been clamoring for a return to form for a long time, and their group tends to overlap with the mainline fans and the speculative ecology fans. The veteran fans that I'm describing aren't just anybody that likes the old games. It's specifically the people that like the old games and don't like the new ones. They believe that too much of the old design was abandoned with Monster Hunter World, and Rise just exacerbated the problem. They weren't satisfied with Monster Hunter World because they believe that the clunkier design choices of the earlier titles managed to enhance the hunting simulation experience. The technical limitations in the old games created specific art directions and gameplay design choices that have since been gentrified to keep up with what's considered standard for AAA titles. Players that played the first 4 generations will be fond of gameplay mechanics that are dated, sluggish, or confusing. They are unhappy with things like the changing or removal of the tracking systems.
I actually didn't.
Bug nets and pickaxe.
The tracking system, guys, was annoying. I remember that in Monster Hunter Generations. I don't know. I didn't like it. Maybe it's because I'm older and it takes a lot more time. I don't know.
Being
I didn't like it at all.
The removal of hot and cold drinks.
That was cool.
The ability to access your camp to manage your entire inventory after you've departed from a quest.
Okay.
They resent these changes being considered quality of life changes. They don't see them as quality of life changes, they see them as gameplay mechanics that incentivized careful preparation and play, which in turn complemented the monster hunting simulation. Their main complaint is that Monster Hunter strays further and further into a pure action game. And the more things are streamlined, the more they push you into going to the monster quickly, then the less room there is for the hunting simulation aspect, which these players value so highly.
See, I was never into that.
Monster Hunter's original tracking system involved either wandering around the map when you're new, or understanding the monster spawn locations when you're experienced,
yeah,
and then locating the monster and hitting it with a paintball. The paintball then tracks its position on the
On the
map.
map, yeah.
In World, they replaced this system with the Scoutfly system, which still required some level of tracking,
Which I
but was
liked.
much less demanding on the player. In Rise, the tracking system was removed completely, and now the monsters are always visible on the map. The veteran
I don't know, like the flies was, I don't know, I didn't really miss that from Monster Hunter World. I like to just get to the action, I guess for each of his own, but I was like, I just want to get to the monster. I would spend time, maybe because it sucked, but trying to figure out what the monsters were, and then even an original spray painting them and tagging them and having to find them. And it's like you spend like 20 minutes even get to the monster. I don't know about you guys, but that was, I did not miss that at all actually from Monster Hunter World either. And going back to like generations and stuff like that, it just didn't do it for me.
players were upset with this change because it streamlines a massive part of the hunting process. Similarly, Monster Hunter World introduced a base camp that lets you manage all of your items. This, along with the fast travel to these camps, grants players access to everything they've ever collected, essentially giving them infinite healing, infinite potions, infinite of any material that they've farmed, and completely removes any of the tension you might have experienced by hunting a monster and noticing that you're running low on mega potions, because you can simply disengage and go get more. They also appreciate the slower, more methodical combat found in the older titles, and even how long it takes to heal and how long you're stuck not being able to move while you're doing it.
Oh yeah.
Many of these old systems like item management and tracking systems slowed the game down and required the player to put extra care into all of their actions. They needed to be 100% sure they were ready to depart on the quest. The veteran players that enjoy these systems see them as part of the overall game experience that makes Monster Hunter what it is. Now, the interesting thing about this group is that it's not a monolith. Individuals in this group will overlap with the speculative ecology fans, the mainline fans, and even the Monster Hunter World fans. And they believe different things to different degrees.
But I'm kind of curious to know how many of these veterans like still play these games. I guarantee they still play these games because it seems like a lot of these games just love to complain, honestly. It's like you do one thing and they complain about that. They want the game to stay the same. And if the game stays the same, why is the game the same? So
some want
sense.
a complete return to tradition, but some just want to get rid of the infinite camp restocks and a more involved tracking system. Some want a general increase in difficulty, and for that difficulty to be scattered across the low rank and high rank and not just centered around the endgame experience. Some want the combat to be slower, more methodical, less reliant on counters like Monster Hunter Rise. But many that want that don't necessarily want to go back to Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate, they mean Monster Hunter World level of speed. There's even people like me who started in Monster Hunter World, but went back to the older titles and can see that they did in fact have things of value that could be maybe introduced in the newer games. Alright, that covers all of the different groups pretty well. My personal opinion is that we're in a very good place when it comes to how Capcom is running Monster Hunter. The fact that they're keeping the mainline and portable distinction, and that they're alternating releases between them is a very good thing. The biggest division right now in Monster Hunter is between the Monster Hunter World fans and the Monster Hunter Rise fans, and they also tend to be the most antagonistic to one another.
Sure to see that.
Now that Monster Hunter Wilds is coming out, and it's obvious that it's going to be more like Monster Hunter World, just like the World fans hoped, they and any fans that overlap with them no longer need to be afraid that the franchise
I'm going to
is
definitely go
moving
back
in
to
a
World and
direction that they
actually
didn't
replay it.
understand. I suspect that both the World and Rise fans will gain a new appreciation for each other's game now that they can treat the mainline and portable releases as palate cleansers. Instead of viewing them as existential threats, they'll see them as just a way to pass the time while they wait for the next Monster Hunter game of their preference. Anyway, that's the end of this video. As always, thank you very much for watching.
All right, guys, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Are you a Rise person or a World person? Are you an old school altogether? Me, I'm going to still go with World. Rise was second. I have no complaints about it. I'm not like one of those people that bitch about the game. I still found it fun. Only thing I would complain about maybe is Sunbreak, because I felt like a lot of the monsters were regurgitated and same monsters we were facing over and over, except the 3 lords and then the end boss, which is really good. But I can't wait for Wilds. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Are you going to pick up Wilds, or are you skipping it and you think it's going to just be another AAA flop? Catch you in the next one.